Hello and welcome everyone. Boom shakalaka. I'm your host Stefan Burns here with a deep dive geo update and thought exploration into the state of geology, plate tectonics, the formation of the Earth, solar system dynamics, tension, energy lines across the solar system, gravity waves, how all the things interconnect. So I cannot guarantee that everything I'm going to say is accurate, though the reporting for the events happening today, past few days, earthquake activity, all that of course is factual based off of scientific instruments, but then we'll be doing a lot of just thought exploration and ideation into a lot of these systems that we don't frankly have solid explanations for, understandings of, etc. So I hope that you all are able to take some things away from this, and even if perhaps we don't get to the final absolute truth, it maybe is a deflection point for you on your own consciousness truth-seeking journey. Because to understand the universe, we have a whole bunch of systems that we can look at to do so. They are all reflective of each other, reflexive, fractal, quantum. Everything is microcosms and macrocosms. For example, they imaged the inside of a cell and they found these turbulent patterns which are suggestive almost of wind, like wind currents. So you have these proteins following along these rivers of movement within a cell, just like we see turbulent fluid dynamics within our atmosphere. So you see how everything is effectively fractal. So, okay, what is happening right now? Well, what we're seeing is we're seeing swarm activity across the Earth in two critical locations for the North American plate. We have normally swarm activity over here off to the northeast of Puerto Rico. And this started up roughly, if I remember correctly, this started up in 2020, and since then there's just been low-grade activity of like magnitude 2s, 1.5, sometimes something a little bigger, a few a day, nothing crazy. Just in the past week now, the earthquake activity has moved across Puerto Rico, so significantly expanded in scale. There's more frequent events now just in the past few days, and the magnitudes are also a little bit higher than normal. So clearly something is changing at this critical junction for the North American plate. We see this is the deepest point in the ocean outside of the Marianas Trench. The Puerto Rico Trench is very deep, so this is a key geologic zone to watch for the Earth as a whole, right here. Then we go over and we have an earthquake swarm occurring right next to axial seamount, just slightly to the north along the transform section in the mid-ocean ridge spreading section of the Juan de Fuca plate. And this is all part of what's known as the Cascadia Subduction Zone. So the actual subduction trench is following the cursor right there, that blue line. But we're so close to the end of this plate that most of the plate is already subducted below the surface, and so this is all acting as one cohesive subduction zone and unit, you could say. So for subduction to occur along that plate deeper down, you necessarily need these parts to be loose enough to accommodate that plate motion down. It may slip 10, 20 meters, 30 meters. Like, it can be a very big plate movement, because we had a magnitude 9 here in the year 1700, and the magnitude 7.9, for example, off the coast of San Francisco Bay Area in 1906. That showed plate movement between the North American plate, the Pacific plate. This is a transform fault. But that showed plate movement all the way up to triple point of, I think, close to like 30 feet, 10 meters. That's a magnitude 7.8, 7.9. That's the current estimate magnitude for that. Magnitude 9 is 34, 32, 33 times more energy released and more fault slip than that event would be. So we're talking 20, 30 meters of slip. So this is a big event that has occurred in the past, 1700 AD, CE, whatever system we want to use, of course, going further back. We really don't, as far as I don't know the reoccurrence interval for that. It's probably around the order of 500 years, but it could be longer than that. It could be a little less frequent. I don't think it is. One kind of corollary we can look at quickly is New Zealand. Here we have a very well-constrained reoccurrence interval for the alpine fault of about 300 years, going across like 10, 12 earthquake sequences. Last time this slipped was 1717, but the maximum that can occur along the alpine fault is estimated to be about magnitude 8, maybe pushing 8.5. That would be pretty wild. So that gives you a sense of scale of how long it takes to build up that stress for an area like that. So Cascadia could be quite a bit more than 300 years for its reoccurrence. And of course, there's going to be variability within that. What's the range on that? Is it a high range variability, or is it a very tight range variability like it is for the alpine fault in New Zealand? It's pretty much like a metronome on the dot for 300 years in New Zealand. So we are seeing an earthquake swarm off the coast of the axial seamount. This is quite unusual. I mean, we do see earthquake activity for the Juan de Fuca plate and bigger earthquakes for sure, more energy release, all that, but this is in an area that has been very quiet seismically, at least going back to 2020. So it's definitely worthy of paying attention to and taking note of. And it kind of helps us to launch into this larger geologic setting and progression that is at play here on this part of the globe. So here we see our earthquakes for the past week, and we see this swarm that's just started up off of, again, the boundary of the Pacific Plate, the Juan de Fuca Plate. So we see 18 earthquakes there for just the past week. And really, if I switch this to the past day, I think they've all come in today. So here we can switch that. 18 earthquakes today, okay? Switch back to our 2.5. You see that these are all earthquakes less than magnitude 4.5 and greater than magnitude 2.5. I think our largest event is this it's a 4.2 down here. So, you know, significant event, 4.2, 4.1, and then you start to get to high magnitude 3s. So this is not something that people along the coast are feeling. This is not a big quake in and of itself, but 18 events in less than 24 hours across a distributed region is telling you that there is a larger unlocking of the fault that's occurring there. And when you are to have a big plate movement, you need parts of the fault to be unlocked. And these earthquakes are creating more microfractures. So it's not like the plate's now just completely going like this and it's like a lubricated kneecap or something. But you just generate these microfractures, and then let's say a big magnitude 9 was to occur, this entire block is subducting. The Juan de Fuca block is subducting under the North American plate. The entire thing shifts 20, 30 meters. You're going to want those microfractures there to accommodate that slip and not be the part that holds everything up via friction. So now we're seeing a part of the plate unlock that we haven't seen earthquake swarm activity in for at least 6 years. Here we see Puerto Rico, and you see how everything has spread across. So normally it's concentrated up here. Now it's spreading across Puerto Rico, and definitely the frequency of events has gone up. The magnitudes is a little bit higher than normal. Typically they're in the more magnitude 1 to 2, maybe 3 range. Here we have a 4.0. So similar magnitudes, they're happening at the same time. So you see how these two events are interconnected. So the fact that they are connected together, though one is for the Caribbean plate, the other is for the Juan de Fuca plate, shows that something is influencing both of them simultaneously. What would that be? That would be the North American plate, okay? So that gives us a sense that, yeah, maybe we see something. The Caribbean plate is going to have to shift in response to the North American plate. The Juan de Fuca plate is going to have to shift in response to the North American plate. And the North American plate's not the biggest plate on the globe. That's the Pacific plate. So that's really one of the big drivers here as well. Okay, so if we look at our historic earthquake activity, here we see it for this location. This is going back to 2020, all earthquakes magnitude 2.5 and greater. And you'll immediately notice Gray is for all the old events, orange is for the recent events. And look at how you have coverage all throughout here. You have coverage all through there. You have some distributed quake activity, also some like quarry explosions and stuff that get picked up across the Cascadia area and, you know, Seattle, Portland, all those places, right? Going down into Northern California. I drew the box basically right like this for the selection zone. You see that this right here is occurring right in the gap space. And so you have these sections with tectonic blocks. And tectonic blocks aren't just plates, by the way. Plates are the biggest tectonic blocks. But you can have tectonic blocks at smaller sizes that if they do their own rupture and movement as part of the larger plate movement can generate lesser magnitude events, like a magnitude 6 or 6.5 or a 7. So here we see this occurring in this zone now that is generally quiet. Not even magnitude 2.5 events, right? The fact that, I mean, there's like 2 of them right here, a 3.9, 3.2, but this is the furthest south that magnitude 2.5 and greater earthquakes have crept in the last 6 years. And right in this location here is where you have axial seamount, which is a very mafic, basically hotspot spreading center. And so we do see these dynamics where you often get these sort of volcanic systems located at key plate junctions, which is what we're seeing here. So that effectively distributes a lot of the energy of this whole situation and setup geologically through the volcanic activity at axial seamount, which can get a lot of earthquakes. So a lot of stuff can happen there. That's where you get a flow of hydrothermal fluids. You have hydrothermal vents there down at the surface, these deep sea black smoker vents, right? They're emitting a ton of chemicals into the water. You have altered, like remineralized zones and stuff at depth as a result of this. So you have a lot of activity here. This is where the plate connection effectively is weak. And here's where you need bigger events to rupture it. So we can look at some of those. Let's go down to the strongest events. Here, you may remember December of 2024, the magnitude 7. We also see that 6.4 and 6.2 occurring in the years beforehand, all clustered close together. Then we see all these magnitude 6 events off the coast of Oregon. Here we have one. There's another just nearby. Here we have another one, that's a 5.9. Here we see a little bit further in, closer at 5.9, another same location. That's part of a double sequence on the 4th of June, 2021. So we see a bunch of magnitude 6 and so events in this location, and then you get some higher magnitude events in here. Once again, we see this magnitude 6 there off the coast, magnitude 6 there. If you go further up, here we start to get some magnitude 6 plus events. So we see a 6.5 here off Vancouver Island, 6.4 to the south, 6.0 just to the north of that, and a bunch of magnitude 5s in here, 4s, things of this nature. So a lot of these areas have already slipped with big events magnitude 6 or greater. We have our magnitude 7 down at the bottom of Juan de Fuca. But this critical zone where the plate is the beefiest, you don't have a big event yet. You don't have it. You have the axial seamount, and now you have this new earthquake swarm. So I don't know precisely where we are in the progression of an event leading up to another magnitude 9 Cascadia. Anywhere from magnitude 8 to 9, you could also get 3, like you get 2 big earthquakes that pop off, you get 3 big earthquakes. For example, 2 magnitude 8.8s equals a magnitude 9 in terms of earthquake energy release. You can measure earthquake energy in terms of like watt hours, for example. So an 8.8 equals up a 9. So you could get 2 big magnitude 8.8s to pop off within the span of a few years or even a few days. These sort of sequences are possible. We see this with, let's say, 3 or 4 magnitude 8 quakes that are like 8.4, 8.5 or something. Like that's certainly possible, or it could be one big event with some big aftershocks. So we see that now this swarm is moving into a critical zone that has not seen release in some time. We're seeing the earthquake activity off the coast of Puerto Rico, showing that the entire plate is effectively at these two critical points, unconnected, ready to go. And then you can also examine the earthquake history. So you had that big event, San Francisco, 1906, causing rupture and slip all the way up to the triple point. You had big earthquake activity in the Los Angeles Basin in 1812. You had a double sequence that moved across like this. You had a magnitude 7.5 or so that struck the San Diego area the year 1800. If you go back to 1811, 1812, when we had this double sequence, we also had all the magnitude 7s that popped off in New Madrid. So this entire fault system, which is in the heartland of the North American plate, a failed rift system deep in the middle of this plate. So that's worthy of consideration. You see that all those have long geologic timers, and it's been a long time since they've been basically triggered. So now with these two pieces loosening up, we could see activity anywhere along this zone. That's really the key. It's difficult to know exactly where, but we're more likely, I would say, I think we're progressing forward to another sequence of large earthquake events across North America for the next 10, 50, 100 years. And it's likely to come in a burst. Like we saw in 1811, 1812, it occurred boom, boom there across North America, and also Venezuela had a big magnitude 8+ quake, the biggest of all of them. So that's the sort of clustering of seismic events that we get if we look at the geologic record for these larger plate movements to unfold. So that is quite significant. And the latest earthquake that we had just today, if we pop in here, we see that it is a magnitude 5.1 there, right off to the northwest. So this is quite a bit further away, but it is still this North America Pacific Plate junction, bringing into the conversation a larger, basically, geologic picture. We can also, maybe this is influencing what we're seeing as well, is we have a Category 5 super typhoon right now basically barreling into Guam. So here it is. And this is creating gravity waves. Every sort of big cyclone like this creates atmospheric gravity waves that travel out significant distances, and they have amplitudes that can affect systems and can trigger changes to, for example, the background electromagnetic field and wind currents, and there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff that they create. They also create these pressure waves that go down, and they generate seismic hum underneath and microseisms and more, so they interact with the Earth directly tectonically as well. So this is basically pumping atmospheric gravity waves across the entire Pacific Plate, but also where all these junctions are for the Pacific Plate way off to the west in the Western Pacific, right? It's also activating all of them. So it makes sense that you get this rumbling of all these plate boundaries because of Super Typhoon Sinlaku. At the same time, you're getting a rumbling of activity on the eastern side of the Pacific Plate. So it's really a question of where does the tension break? Like where is the release going to be? Now, I discuss how plate tectonics is accelerating and geology is accelerating on the planet. And while there's always changes occurring to the Earth, but you have to imagine there's a breathing rhythm to things. There's an in, there's an out. So there's an inhalation, there's an exhalation. And we see these periods again where we get significant bursts of seismic activity. That would be an acceleration of geologic events, or let's say we get a sequence of volcanic events. We see that across the historic profile. That's a acceleration of geologic volcanic events. There's also periods of time where we're kind of cooling off, okay? So going back again to this time period, 1700 for this magnitude 9, that's the estimate, could again be like 2 or 3 high magnitude 8 events that made up the Cascadia 1700 earthquake. We don't have the best records. You have to go back to 1811, 1812 or south for the LA basin for the big magnitude 7+ events like 7.5+, San Diego 1800, New Madrid, 1811, 1812, 1906, San Francisco. So clearly there's a lot of old geology that needs to be refreshed there, and we'll probably get a sequence burst of that. That's all, right, as I just described, Venezuela, that was 1812. That's all in the span of 12 years, and then this is going back to 1700. The last time New Zealand went, 1717, you see how they cluster in time. Well, if we go up here to another big component of the Pacific Plate, Kamchatka, this is where we had the megaquake last year, magnitude 8.8. So we saw that occur 2025. Last big event from this location was 1952 with a similar earthquake, 8.8, 9, somewhere in that zone. So that's showing a magnitude 8.9, let's say, every 60, 70 years or so, about every 70 years. That's quick, right? We have not had, imagine we had a magnitude 9 here every 70 years. That's not happening, okay, as of right now. But this is all part of the Pacific Plate. So the Pacific Plate needs to move all as one cohesive unit. At the end of the day, across geologic time, it's moving at that clip. So you are going to have some uneven distribution of movement. It's not going to be homogeneous, but in general, overall, you are going to see this play out where you get the plate to move as a whole because it is all connected together. And there are rotation dynamics here, right? So the plate is actually at times like actually rotating. We get that with North America. If we turn on the labels here, we'll see the plate motion, and we see this rotation aspect. Because here you have the arrows going this way, you have the Caribbean plate going that way, and then you have it up here, North American plate, basically having this shift like this. So you get this contracting rotational movement for, just in this example, North American plate. Same dynamics also play out across the Pacific plate. So we're also examining the fact that, yeah, you'll have times where you get a big crunch of activity because of the rotational dynamics in one location. That's the focus point. But then it will shift over as things start to evolve and change. And eventually, this entire Juan de Fuca plate will be underneath the North American plate and craton overall. We can look at a cross-section for this. Let's pull it up. Here we see the plates as overall. So North American plate, Caribbean plate, South American plate, Nazca plate, Cocos plate. Here's the big Pacific plate. Juan de Fuca plate is just like almost like a vestige plate now. And it's getting consumed as we speak. So it's, and maybe that consumption of that plate is actually a faster, bigger event than we think. Because again, these plates, if they can get unlocked, they can move rapidly. It's not like a one-year thing. It could be like a 1 hour, like that plate just like going like crazy. Events bigger than magnitude 9 are certainly possible. It's all dependent on how big of a block movement that you get. So you get a bigger movement of the Juan de Fuca plate, maybe you're at 9.5. Maybe you're at magnitude 10. Like those events are going to be way less frequent in time, but geologically, I would put money down that they happen. But I think that the record is very sparse because it's like 10,000, 20,000 year probably reoccurrence interval events. And geology in between helps to erode all the features down and make it hard to discover. And then the smaller events that keep creeping and moving and everything. So here we see the subduction zone for this. And you realize as this plate goes down that the majority of the Juan de Fuca plate is underneath the North American plate at this time. It's why you have all these volcanoes, you have tremor that's occurring, you have shallow crustal earthquakes, you have a lot of activity in this zone, a lot of magma coming up. You get these inter-slab earthquakes as well going down to depth. So this rifting here is really just like the end of a long chain system, and it's more being dragged along than being the dominant player in terms of creating this subduction zone. I hope that makes sense, right? I think most people think of the Cascadia Subduction Zone as you have this active plate generation, the Juan de Fuca, and then it's like immediately subducting underneath. And that's true, but it's really more so this thing is still an active spreading center, but it's being consumed by the North American plate. Eventually, this will be underneath the subduction zone, and you'll have just the Pacific plate going off like this. And you'll turn into a rifting setup. So we have similar dynamics with the Caribbean plate. Here's where the two are grinding past each other. You create this super deep Puerto Rican trench. And you can see with this that it's actually more of like a land bridge. That when sea levels were lower, this is more interconnected, and you just had this shearing, this rifting occur in the Caribbean and along this trench. So this is probably really what the future of the western part of North America looks like. It's probably eventually going to look like that fracture land bridge, and you may get some sort of inflow of the ocean in these areas. It's certainly possible as this transforms into a transformed fault like we have off the coast of California. Now, a lot of the geology of the Caribbean plate in the Yucatan area, Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, you make your own choice, is from the asteroid or comet impact about 66 million years ago. So the Chicxulub impact is big. The gravity anomaly for that is like 200, 300 kilometers across. It's very, very large. It created ancient hydrothermal systems. So 200 kilometers in diameter, that crater, but the entire Gulf of Mexico was influenced by that. You get this hydrothermal activity as that bolide sinks, spreads out. Of course, a ton of energy injected into the system. This alters the currents, the flow. They drilled down this like 2.5 kilometers, and they found the evidence of that ancient hydrothermal system. And I point this out because you have a hydrothermal system like it at axial seamount. So you also have smokers and everything there. And you also have black smokers in the Gulf of California. So we have these connections now deeper into the planet, right? Plates are just the surface layer of the Earth. And if we want to understand what's happening, we really need to look at what's underneath the plates, the mantle, and what's happening at the core, right? These are the systems driving the longer geologic cycles. But these plates are interesting because they're a differentiation from the bulk mass and bulk composition of the Earth. You have this chemical differentiation and crystal differentiation that occurs with the Earth. You have the solid inner core. You have an outer liquid core. That's interesting. How is it that you have liquid underneath thousands of kilometers of rock? And it's generating this magnetic field due to convection currents because there's a temperature difference across them. The outer liquid core is cooler than the inner liquid core. And so these convection currents form and you get electric currents as a result. We're within those, magnetic field and everything. So you have this chemical differentiation process which is actually creating the plates itself. Not only are you getting plate creation at these spreading centers, which is what most people think. They think the plate creation is just happening laterally. You also get plate creation happening upwards from the mantle, okay? You have a lot of that magma rising up, you have hot spots, you have all these things, right? I just touched on the hydrothermal systems. This is bringing that chemical differentiation through. So you're also having mass accretion at the, just across the entire base of the plate. And these plutons can be very thick. These cratons can be 50, 60, 70 kilometers thick. So that's changing the mass balance of the plates. And they're floating on this more viscous layer, which is the mantle. And then, of course, the inner core is an actual liquid. It's a liquid. So shear waves do not pass through it. That's how we know it's a liquid. The seismic shear waves that cannot pass through liquids don't pass through the inner core. So fundamentally, you have like this buoyant system. And so that's why, and a lot of people talk about this, the redistribution of ice and snow and glaciers has an impact on the geology. I think a lot of people overstate that. And I'm not, I have no definitive conclusions on this, but some people are talking about the distribution and changing mass of snow, ice, and glaciers causing the entire planet literally to flip because of the center of gravity. I think that's probably an exaggeration, but you do see these changes. And you can have plates not just only move past each other like this, but they can sink or rise vertically. So this is a very important dynamic to take into account. And the entire geologic system right now is in this acceleration phase, we know, because we're seeing the entire Earth become more energetic and warm up. We're seeing these big Category 5 super typhoons, right? There's so much energy right now in our atmosphere, so much energy in our oceans. They've absorbed a tremendous amount of heat as global warming has continued. Overall weather systems and climates become more volatile. That's really the bigger story rather than the trend towards a warming planet, which is certainly important, showing that there is just more energy overall being contained within our wonderful blue sphere. There's also just more volatility in just extremes in events during this current time period where we're really breathing in, drawing in energy. You have a very active solar cycle 25, stronger than 24, all this as part of a grand maximum of activity going back 300 years to the Maunder minimum. So this is 1600s where we had very little solar activity. Now we've had 300 years of high activity from the sun, all this charging up the system, being the fundamental driver of a lot of this. Earth has her own internal dynamics, of course, but the sun is the one that's just constantly pushing things forward in a significant way. So as that driver continues, as global warming and Earth electrification continue, I would hypothesize, and I think we're seeing this already observationally, that these sort of Earth events are going to continue to increase in frequency and in intensity. So right now, we're not talking about a magnitude 9 earthquake that occurred today right now in this video, thank God. But we're looking at signs that you could interpret as preliminary activity. And this is important to know. And it's so interesting how this is also being a mirror of what's happening at geopolitical scale. So without getting into that, basically right now at the geopolitical scale, the United States is going absolutely crazy, doing a ton of things. They're, in Venezuela, they're doing a whole bunch of military action in the Caribbean, across the Caribbean. You see them now all in basically the Middle East and Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, the United States has a huge presence across Europe. There's talks about Cuba, Greenland. Like, we see that there's a lot of action happening geopolitically for the United States and by extension, all the countries of North America, also, Mexico and Canada as well. And at the same time, as we see this human expression of this energy, we see the geologic expression at the same time. So I don't look at the geopolitical stuff as 100% confirmation that the geology is also saying the same story, but the fact that they are just is like a subtle nod from God that you're on the right track. So that is something I take into account, and that's mirroring what we're seeing, showing these larger dynamics at play. Now, something also interesting to note is that we're having these cometary fragments right now fly into our sun. So we've just now had a third Kreutz comet fragment fly into our sun in about the past 2 weeks. So we had C2026A1 maps fly in on the 4th of April. So it's actually just been about a week now. Now on the 12th, we'll see this fragment come in. We catch it near the end here of the coronagraph, but wait here. We should see that little fragment go in. I'll switch the view to our C2. Oh, actually, we'll look at our CCR1 view. Just keep in mind, this does flash a little bit, but it should be fine for you guys. So at the end here, right before the flash, you'll see a cometary fragment fly into the sun. See that right there? There it is. This is a Kreutz comet fragment, roughly along the same trajectory as C2026A1 maps. There it is. And that's the third in a row now. So that really, to me, shows me that there's something happening here. When you get 3 in a row, okay, what's the deal? So we're seeing this activation of the solar principle right now at this moment in time, and we have a ton of planetary geometry coming up just in the next week or so. I can switch this to a heliocentric chart, so let's do that. And we'll keep it on true sky. Go back to our, apply without saving. We'll go back to our main chart now. And here we see the heliocentric planetary geometry. Let me move this over for you a little bit, okay? And we see basically a lot of activations at this moment in time. Here is the Earth right there. There's Jupiter. We have this Jupiter-Pluto opposition. This is a long-term heliocentric aspect which is happening right now at this moment in time. You will notice that Mercury is soon going to move into that opposition with Jupiter. So it's going to be Mercury on Pluto, then you have the Sun, and then you have Jupiter. That alignment's coming up around the 20th of this month. 420 is going to be lit, folks. Boom shakalaka. It really is. Now we have Mars coming into aspect with Neptune and Saturn geocentrically. So that soon they're all going to be lined up. And you have this larger Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus harmonic aspect, basically minor grand trine, which is active. You have a Earth, Venus, Uranus alignment geocentrically, not involving the Sun, but geocentrically you have them aligned. You have a Venus, Saturn, Neptune alignment from the position of Venus. So you have a lot of planetary geometry active coming up in about 20 days. Let's actually move it to the 20th, see exactly what we get. So here's your activation of this planetary geometry. It's when Mercury conjuncts Pluto in opposition to Jupiter and everything else I described is active. Okay, Mercury is the big activator here. Jupiter is the one that can throw its gravity around. So when you have these harmonic, basically tension networks set up via undiscovered force, okay? I mean, it could be gravity. I think gravity is a component, electromagnetic. We see observationally that planetary geometry has an effect on the energetic expression of the Earth, the Sun, the planets, and more. So observationally, we know that there's something to these geometric relationships that the planets form. The question is, whatever this undiscovered thing is, that's still beyond our current understanding, and we just know a fraction of less than a fraction of a percent in the grand scheme of the universe. So that's a totally reasonable assumption to operate off of. But we see observationally that with these alignments, significant events occur: earthquakes, solar activity, geomagnetic storms, etc. So here we see the closest planet to the solar system with Pluto, one of the furthest, though at the same time the closest trans-Neptunian dwarf planet in our solar system, working with Jupiter heavyweight. Archetypally, if we look at the mythos, you have Hermes working really closely with Zeus, or Mercury working closely with Jupiter, the messenger god working for the god of the gods. And you have the sun right in the middle driving the whole thing. So we see that there is this wisdom distilled by the ancients across thousands of years left for us that we can interpret in this modern scientific sense, which gives us an edge as well. So this is something that I would be watching for. We see here some other interesting aspects. I mean, look here, we have Ceres exactly opposite the Earth heliocentrically on the 20th. This is a dwarf planet in the asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter. That's, you know, a quite significant point and planet to be aware of. So yeah, one thing that I think of as it relates to the planets, and let's pull up solar system scope right here to kind of get a better visual understanding of this. I think this is really interesting. It came to me today. We were talking about the differentiation of the Earth, this chemical differentiation, and how the crust has different chemical composition. You know, felsic, mafic versus the mantle, deep mantle material has a different chemical composition. Of course, the inner core, outer core, they are highly metallic. They have a different composition. We see that there's been this differentiation of elements and chemicals across the solar system. A lot of this being driven by plasma processes. So just as we can look at the plates on the surface of the Earth as being part of a larger system that's undergone chemical differentiation, we can look at the planets as being plates in a tension network for the chemical differentiation of the solar system. Because the solar system has its own volume, and instead of it being like, for example, the plates all touching each other, the planets aren't necessarily touching each other directly, but they are holding these energy tension lines, again, with some sort of unknown field or force, it seems, that influences the microcosm system below, which is the Earth and its own geologic system. So this is really a differentiation exactly the same as we see on Earth, just expressed differently. And so each of these planets acts as plates. Jupiter would be, for example, like the Pacific plate. Saturn would be maybe the North American plate. You get a sense of what I'm talking about. So as we enter into these geometric relationships with the planets, it makes sense that these smaller geometric relationships that exist on the planet also undergo their own changes. And that can be either, let's say, earthquake activity, like a swarm, volcanic event, large earthquake event. It doesn't necessarily need to be apocalyptic, cataclysmic, or anything like that, but it can be significant. It can be significant. That's what I'm really driving at there. So here we see the planetary geometry of the 20th of April, and we can zoom in. Here we see the main one: Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune. And again, Mercury and Jupiter here being key activators, because we zoom out, we see that alignment here. So, but Earth being close to Mercury is able to also gravitationally influence it, because Earth is the heaviest planet in the inner solar system. It has the most mass. It's the densest. Now, Venus does get closer to Mercury at times and is nearly as massive. So Venus's gravitational effect on Mercury overall is larger. The Sun has the largest field. But with the position of Venus here, Earth is having a significant gravitational influence over Mercury. You see how all these tension lines I'm discussing, how they all interact together. Here we see that Earth, Venus, Uranus alignment. Here's the Mercury, Jupiter alignment. It's really clicking into place just a little bit before right here. But you see a lot happening. There's the Venus, Saturn, Neptune alignment. Another interesting thing to note, and I'll talk about this more in the next update on Comet R3 Pan-STARRS, which is coming in very quick. It's very bright. It's a big comet. You can see it in the morning soon after perihelion on April 19th. You'll see it at night in the evening sky. That is performing a perfect Sun-Earth alignment around the 25th, 26th of April. I looked into that, and it's really interesting because you have here with the Earth, and let's zoom out a bit. Let's see if we can actually show this. You have here with the Earth on January 2nd, the Earth is at its closest to the Sun. Now, the size of these are not to scale, okay, but the orbits are roughly to scale. It's as closest to the Sun. It's like 0.985 astronomical units on January 2nd. 181 days later, you have July 2nd, and that is when the Earth is at its furthest from the Sun, okay? That's its aphelion. So it's perihelion, January 2nd. Aphelion is the 2nd of July. Why does this matter? Well, when you have a massive body getting closer to the Sun, it's going further into the Sun's gravitational field, meaning that the Sun can have more gravitational influence on the Earth system. Again, that's perihelion, January 2nd. When it's moving further away and it's at the nodal point at the farthest, which is like 1.015 astronomical units, then that is basically less gravitational influence from the Sun. Now, it's not just going to fling out or anything, but you see this natural celestial rhythm of increasing and decreasing solar gravity on the entire Earth system across half a year. That's a foundational solar resonance for our Earth, a Sun-Earth heartbeat or breathing pulse rhythm. Very important, okay? We know very little about it in terms of how that actually affects systems here on Earth. I'll look into that more. I just really started thinking of this for the first time in this way recently. And I had to credit some of the genius of Rudolf Steiner for that, just kind of launching me into that direction. Okay, so again, January 2nd, July 2nd. If you take the golden ratio and you crunch that number for exactly in that wave cycle, because that's a wave rhythm, right? Going from closer then further away, you have this repetitious wave pattern. If you take the golden ratio for exactly on the pullback from that on January 2nd, you have right around when comet Pan-STARRS goes exactly in between the Earth and the Sun. That's really cool. So let me show you that specifically on our Sky Live program here. And this I consider like basically a celestial pluck of the harp and the string and a musical note being generated. So here we have, do we have R3? We do have R3. Okay, great. So here we have R3 Pan-STARRS. And we see it already set up for the 25th of April. And there it is. My computer's just slowing up a little bit right now because I had the program open. So just one moment. There we go, that should help. Okay, so right here is that alignment on the 25th, 26th of April. As you can see it, again, that's right at that Fibonacci ratio, golden ratio point. It's actually a few days before. If we want to specifically get the golden ratio, it's on the 23rd of April. Let me just check, I wrote it down. Yeah. April 23rd is the precise golden ratio for that. We see that's not exact alignment, but consider that the planetary geometry is really active on the 20th. You get that planetary geometry right before this golden ratio moment for that Earth-Sun resonance, and then you get this perfect comet alignment with the Sun and the Earth on the 25th, 26th. So you have this celestial wild card coming in and perfectly pinging that gravity vector, because it's always changing like this. And my research with seismic is that these Fibonacci ratios, these golden ratios, are very important for actually understanding the energy flow across not only like geologic systems, but the universe as a whole. Everything is a spiral. Right? The entire solar system is spiraling through space. The solar wind spirals out. You see this reflected across reality, this fractal spiral nature. So having that occur is a perfect celestial note playing, and a comet has mass. It also can contain more rarefied elements. You can get like silicates and even some metals with comets. The overall density is low, but in the center you're going to have some heavier materials. So you do then get, and you have this thing highly active with plasma. So it's speaking to this larger system at play that we can observe, but we can only really speculate as to the real downstream effects and the ramifications of this whole symphony that's unfolding. But it is amazing that with some basically observation intuition, we can like fractionate out this whole system and start to understand it in a more cohesive, holistic way. So what we have coming up is quite significant. I don't know how the energy is going to express. I don't think we're necessarily guaranteed a big geologic event, but I do think that's actually quite likely because we're going to have some significant coronal holes on the Sun. So if we go to our SUVI imagery here, we already see it rotating into view, okay? So this is our Earth-facing view of the Sun. And I should be able to, let's see if I got that. That's good enough. I'll move this over for you guys. So here we are. And, oh, okay. So we see this very large coronal hole rotating in. These are earthquake generators. If they are big, if they are close to the equator, they have a large lateral extent. They're trans-equatorial, meaning that they hit Earth with this high-speed stream. And again, because it's wide, were in that high-speed stream, that magnetic field structure for a while, when they have a negative polarity, that's when we see earthquakes. The solar wind density drops. It just seems to cause the entire Earth to expand a little bit such that the plates can reorganize and then condense back down. It's very interesting. So we have that coming up, and well, it takes 14 days to go across the sun. Geoeffective is right here. We often see big events right when it's Earth facing, when we're having a deficiency in that UV light from the corona as a result. So really within the next 7 days, it's going to be right here in that perfect zone that we look for big seismic bursts and earthquake events. And that's all perfectly corresponding with everything that I've just laid out. And we're seeing the preparatory activity perhaps with this earthquake swarm off the coast of Cascadia, the earthquake swarm expanding across Puerto Rico, and more. So a lot happening, as you can tell. And it's definitely been a bit of a mystery to unfold, but I think I'm getting closer to seeing that, and I wanted to, at least a plausible hypothesis for this. Some interesting things to consider, and I wanted to share that with all of you on this Good Sunday. So thank you all so much for watching, everybody. We'll do a quick question and answer. I know you guys have all been going crazy in the chat. I hope you've been having fun. But we are going to take a couple questions because I'm sure that some of you are been, listening along astutely and want to pry in a little bit more. So let's do it. And a comment from Chicago here, which is that this will affect consciousness. Yes, consciousness is the underlying substrate of all of this. So that's at least what I believe. And I think that's just almost an implicate order of the universe, is consciousness kind of underlying all this. And that could explain to some degree that geopolitical, geologic connection that we see, which is very interesting. The update on 3i Atlas is that it's continuing to move out of our solar system, but it had more significant events than a lot of people realize. We also get a lot more of these interstellar transits than people think. And we're just starting to discover them. So I think that really, if you were to consider this like a puzzle, 3i Atlas was not the puzzle. 3i Atlas was one piece of the puzzle. And it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle. So that's a whole thing to explore into, but we're going to get a lot more data and understanding as more interstellar objects are found. Of course, if that happens, I'll keep you up to date here on the channel. Question from Cat Lady 2026 describes probably everybody. Are you following the volcano in Italy? You probably mean Campi Flegrei. There have been a few, just a couple magnitude 3+ events at Campi Flegrei. But really it's pretty normal activity for Campi Flegrei. Overall activity at Campi Flegrei, the supervolcano in Italy, has been on a tear, increasing upwards, earthquakes, gas emissions, uplift and more. But in terms of like right now, am I worried about Campi Flegrei? I mean, I am, but it's not like we're seeing a seismic burst of 1,000 events right now. And Golden Peak has a question about the Schumann resonance. Let me pull up my answer for you on that. I've already posted about this. This is actually becoming, when I load that application for the solar system scope, it just causes my entire browser to kind of slow down. So I'm just going to keep it where it is because otherwise, I don't know how it's going to behave. But basically, we have snow flurries going across Tomsk, Russia. So you can check my X account at Stefan Burns Geo. I have an explanation there. But we see these sort of increases in the vertical electric field, the background electromagnetic field for a location when there's local weather. So it's just local weather, feeding into the global overall heartbeat pulse. Thank you, Lars Harvey. I don't know. I'm just feeling calm and relaxed today. I'm doing my best to be more relaxed in my day, take things a little bit more easy, live life as more of an adventure day by day. And so that's why today was fun, because I had all these ideas floating around, and I just wove the story as best I could for you all to neatly organize them to some degree, present them, build those connections across them, so then it's like a little bauble that you can play with. Because, you know, I'm not the only person on the planet interested in the earth and geology and more. There's a lot of people across a whole range of skills and education sets and more. Some people know almost nothing about geology, earth science, but they have a fascination with it, and they want to learn more, and they're looking for guidance. And then you have other people who have just done a tremendous amount of digging on their own. They may not be right with everything. I would put myself in this bucket, but you know, they're clearly interested in moving forward and trying to understand things. A good example of that for YouTube would be Dutch Sense. You know, he's a normal guy who's just spending a lot of time looking at the earth and earthquakes and activity more and doing his best to understand it. And you're going to get further along in the quest of understanding if you are spending time doing it than you would if you aren't. So there's something to this. So yeah, just presenting these ideas for the benefit of everybody is really the goal here. And I don't claim that anything I just stated other than the data for today is 100% accurate, but I think it's pretty close. You know, I do a lot of research and stuff, and I think we're getting closer every single day. Pan-STARRS, the comet, can be seen really from the northern hemisphere, less so from the southern hemisphere because it's coming in. Southern hemisphere will get better viewing after perihelion at night. So right now, northern hemisphere has morning viewing around like 4 or 5 a.m. local time before sunrise. After perihelion, April 19th, it'll be better for the southern hemisphere, and it's going to be evening comet. So that's where you can see it from. Does the sun have a core like the Earth that spins, creating a magnetic field? Yeah, so the sun's a big unknown. We have this chemical differentiation that's occurred across the solar system back in the hedogonic era, so the beginning of the solar system. And the idea is that you had this interstellar medium which started to accrete down to a central body of higher gravitation and mass. So you just start to get this movement of gas inwards. You also have some inherent ionization and therefore plasma within this interstellar medium. But as a result of plasma processes and also the different atomic and molecular weights that exist across all these elements and molecules, you get this differentiation to occur. So we see differentiation being an inherent part of the Earth system. As I described earlier, we see differentiation being an inherent part of the solar system, right? The planets are differentiated blocks and bundles of matter from each other and across the entire solar system, where you have huge differences in distributed density of mass across the solar system, the asteroid belt, just void spaces, the orbits of the big planets, outer gas giants, inner, the sun itself, therefore, almost certainly is the product of differentiation itself. We have evidence for that, of course. The corona is this very high temperature, low density plasma, millions of degrees Kelvin. Then you have like the chromosphere, the photosphere, the surface, like these sort of places on the sun where it's denser, it's the temperature is less. So we have this differentiation across the sun. Almost certainly there's a differentiation within the sun that occurs as well. There are a lot of different theories for that, and yeah, that is what is generating the electric and the magnetic fields of the sun. There's other ideas that this flow of energy through the differentiated medium of the sun via like Birkeling currents also helps drive and shape this whole system. So it's interconnected. It's not just electric currents within the sun generating the magnetic field. There's also larger interstellar extragalactic currents flowing through these nodal points of the stars. And then the sun creates its own currents that flow out to the different planets. And so that's one of these tensional lines I'm talking about, these Birkeling currents connecting the planets together to the sun that maybe is implicated with planetary geometry and more. It's very interesting. And here's just an interesting tidbit of information for anyone that's watching. We covered this when it happened. We were talking about the movement of the Australian plate back when this occurred, right around that flyby in the sun diving action of C2026 A1 MAPS, the Croit sun grazer. That was a big chunk. We had a magnitude 5.5 that struck the interior of Australia right next to Uluru, which is a very sacred place. So thanks, Ann Taylor, for bringing that into the conversation. So this kind of goes to show you how the spiritual energy is also connected to all of this. Like as I was walking around today, where I am, there's the whole diverse landscape. And San Diego is very sunny all the time. So you have like chaparral, but it's also just hot. And 300 years ago, a Native American walking around could get tired and need to like take a break underneath a shaded tree. And nowadays we have all these property lines and structures. And I had a hill I was walking up to get to the park, and I just simply needed to catch my breath and take a breather. Because I've been walking around, I had a coffee, and, you know, I was like, definitely, okay, I need to sit down and drink some water and eat my orange. So I did it at someone's, like their wall, the driveway. It was like a nice place. And then the wind was blowing. I connected to, at one point, this could have been like a log on the side of a creek, and 300 years ago, a Native American or maybe an entire family was just like taking their rest there. And so there's these expressions of spirit that exist for a land, that just because new systems and structures have been built on top doesn't mean they go away. And this is also resonating with the overall Earth system. So when you have significant earthquake activity near these sacred sites, you know, that's a sign that there's also shifts occurring within the spiritual realm and the consciousness realm. This is what I believe. And if you are living the life of the overall spiritual ethos and imprint of where you live, you're probably going to be in more resonance with it. And so North America, if we go back to North America, has always had this very free-flowing system. It's been very much a place of freedom, of movement and ideas and autonomy and independence and more. And not just going back to the American settlers, but of course going back thousands and thousands of years, nomadic tribes and more. So it's in the blueprint of North America to be a mover, to be a shaker, to do all the things. And so it's a little out of rhythm for there to not be much movement and for things to be stuck and stagnant in North America. This is a land and location of revolutions and of uprisings and of sudden changes and earthquakes and mega events and more. So it's in the blueprint in the DNA. And so, yeah, that's also in its own expression with Australia, for Eurasia. All these different places have their own expression of this. And if you can tap into that, then you can better understand how this is all unfolding in a really incredible way, which I find is super, super cool. Take one more question, and then I'm going to play the sound bowl for a little bit, and then I'm going to be off. But I think that would be nice. I have the sound bowl right here, so I think that'd be really great, and we'll do that. And Mahler is asking, pretty unrelated to what we're talking about, but this will be the last question. Did they try to silence you with the Artemis II landing? Coughed twice for yes. I wouldn't notice a single human face on these boats surrounding a capsule. The quality of the video was suspicious. Yeah, I mean, you wish that SpaceX did the videography and production of the Artemis II mission, because it left a lot to be desired. And, you know, when you're really doing I mean, they're first and foremost. Let's just start with the assumption that, yes, everything actually went as proceeded. They went to space, splashed down, astronauts, the whole thing, right? Okay? Your primary objective is going to be to get those 4 astronauts around the moon and back. It's not going to be videotaping the whole thing. That would be secondary, okay? That said, it's still important to do your best with that. And certainly they could have done better with the distribution of information for that, inviting in more third-party people, like, you know, some chosen people who are on their own boats can see the splashdown themselves, right? So it's not just filtering all through one feed. But I do think Occam's razor is really powerful here, and it would be arguably more difficult to fake the Artemis 2 mission than it would be to actually do it. And the thing is that we have now 10,000 Starlinks in space. Like, our space technology has advanced tremendously. I'm open to all ideas, but I think what happened with Apollo is that they had an incredible team of engineers that slowly just worked on things until they could actually get it so they could launch to the moon and back. And then the moment those engineers were gone, retired, whatever, like the whole thing basically was shuttered because it was a huge amount of GDP expenditure at the time. There was no longer the political motivation. The scientific motivation was there, but you lost engineers. You'd have to rebuild it from scratch. And there was huge advances in computation and more at the time frame. So to iterate through that would have been cool, but would have required huge amounts of GDP budget to continue. That simply wasn't going to happen as we went into the 80s, okay? The 70s and the 80s. Really like the 70s and then early 80s. So I think that was the case for Apollo. And we have reflectors on the moon and stuff. So I think I definitely put way more on the we went to the moon than not. But certainly there's some oddities, okay? Maybe there's like some supplemental material put in. Like, I don't know. But now we really do have the technology to make this efficient. We're doing it with much less of a GDP percentage for the United States. And soon, so they say, in 2027, we'll be launching one of these a month. So you can't fake that. Once you're at one a month, I mean, you simply can't fake it. And a lot of the people saying, you know, they're launching the rocket into the Atlantic, they simply just don't know physics. So most of the people that say are calling it fake, they don't understand the physics at play, and the rotation of the Earth, and they think the Earth is flat and all these things. So, no one's reached out to me. I don't know why people think, I mean, yeah, certainly there's some weird stuff occurring at government scales, but I don't understand why so many people think that every YouTuber is like compromised or something. Like, I'm just a dude living in an apartment by the beach. It's pretty nice. And I've never been contacted by any of these organizations. And I don't know why they would contact me, to be honest. If they did, maybe be for some sort of promotion, like, hey, we have this rocket launch, do you want to help cover the event? I mean, I don't know, that'd be cool. But most people have very little interaction with the government, and I'm one of them. So no, I did not get bought out. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck happened myself. And I do think Occam's razor, you know, the more complicated something is, the less likely it is to occur, to be the actual case. I think that is a very astute principle to apply here. And I'm not 100%, but probably 95%. That's where I fall on all the moon stuff. And soon it's going to be impossible to fake, okay? So it's like, I'd agree. We're probably at the edge of possibility for faking things, but you have thousands of people. Who's going to hold a secret in? But once they start launching once a month to the moon, there's a moon base. People on Earth have the telescopes. They're seeing the moon base on the surface. Like, guys, you got to give it up at that point. So that's coming very rapidly. So that's my answer with that. And we'll do a sound bowl. I will say I did not hear a sonic boom in San Diego. Now it flew, the re-entry was pretty far off the coast, but I did not hear a sonic boom in San Diego. So there is that. I don't have my own personal direct observation of the space mission. I did not personally go to Florida to see it launch. I didn't even think that I could do it. I did get back soon enough, but I'll do that in the future. I'll tell you that. I'll definitely go to one of the next launches that they do, and I'll live stream the whole thing. Do my best. I did go to San Diego, the beach, and I did not hear sonic boom. I live streamed that for you all. So that's really what I'm interested in. I take everything with a grain of salt. is resonating. This influences the entire energetic system. Big earthquakes cause the earth as a whole to vibrate. We just got out of a large seismic burst. Where are you resonating? What is your vibration, your frequency, your code? What's your biofield? Your musk. What is it? Are you happy with it? Do you want to change? Just observe. We are right now in the calm before the storm. We have the critical planetary geometry of the 20th coming up. We have the nodal flyby, the celestial harp string pluck on the 26th of April via Pan-STARRS. Expect an acceleration to occur, a rapid breath in, and then a deep sigh afterwards in May. What I'll leave you to contemplate with as this video comes to a close is Earth's magnetic field. You have all these systems working together to create this force field around our planet that protects us from so much. It is currently shifting, it's changing, it always is, but that's the point. Consider how Earth's magnetic field, this omnipresent force, is interacting with your own biofield. And we have our own magnetic field, really generated strongly by the heart, but also extending out this way through the crown chakra and then down like this through the root and earth star chakra points. So when these systems are unfolding and changing, that information is embedded within Earth's magnetic field. There's changing flux rates, and that can influence your biofield as well. So consider that and just pay attention to those energy centers. Focus your consciousness there, almost like a yoga nidra, where they ask you to focus on your pinky, now focus on your thumb, your shoulder. Draw your awareness to those locations. What do you feel? Can you feel the cosmic pulse? The energy flow streaming in? That is something for you to explore. Thank you all so much, everybody, for watching today. I hope you found this video valuable in a multitude of ways. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. I'll be back with any important updates that should occur, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. It's really important for increasing the reach on videos. There's always so much competition. We're right now in the social media landscape seeing a lot of competition from just like algorithmic AI posts. Keep in mind that YouTube was founded for educational content. Well, it wasn't founded for that, but really that was the ethos behind YouTube, and the true spirit of YouTube, we could say, is educational content. And right now there's floods of just junk content flooding out, things designed to keep you in a fear loop, to keep you restless, to keep you stuck and stagnant and not really working towards achieving your goals, self-actualization or more. So consciously choosing to disengage with content like that and engaging with conscious content like this is the direction forward. I truly believe so. Everything that you do as it relates to interacting with this video helps get that to a wider audience that's liking, commenting, sharing, watching more of the video. If you stop it halfway, pick it up and watch the rest when you have time, should Spirit call you to do so. So just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up as to the landscape as well right now, because this is, everything is, you know, the result of our actions. And so if we want there to be more conscious educational content out there, we need to prioritize that collectively. So wanted to share that with you as well. Thank you all. Have a great day. God bless. And I'll see you all in the next video.